Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Chase Life Podcast, episode 8 with Rachel and David Godfrey. Now, today we are going to be talking about beliefs. And this is something that we've been kind of like hanging a little a net in the water, saying that we're going to be talking about this soon, and today is the day. Now, beliefs is a massive topic, and it's something that when we first talk to clients, one of the things that we hear a lot of is, but I'm just not sure that I can do it. And the truth is that if you don't believe that you can make changes in your life, then you're actually never going to make them. So the topic of beliefs is crucial to making change. Now, we know that a lot of people have been stuck for such a long time, and they've been struggling for such a long time, and they feel like they have tried everything. And this is the main reason why they have come to this belief of, well, I don't actually believe that I can do it. So let's get stuck in and let's tackle this massive topic.
Yes, exactly. When somebody reaches out and they ask for help to overcome any issue, obviously we specialize in helping binge eating and emotional eating, but any personal area of struggle, there's 3 criteria that must be met. The first is that this change is a must, as in this thing, this area, this problem must change. It's something that is so important for them, and they cannot and will not go any longer without doing something serious to properly and fully address the problem. The second thing is not only this must change, but I must change it, as in they're taking complete ownership for, yes, absolutely, we need to hire experts and get professional help and so on, but nobody is your savior. And I've used that phrase before, right? I'm your savior. I'm your coach. I'm not your savior. and nobody else can do it for you. So other people can guide you and coach you and support you, but fundamentally you're the one who has to do the work and create the personal transformation. So this must change. I must change it. And then the final one is that I can change it. And if those 3 things aren't in place, then it's never going to happen. And the third one is often where a lot of people get stuck, because they have all of these doubts and fears and anxieties about, what if I can't? Or what if I start putting in all of that hard work and effort and I'm still not enough? I'm still not good enough. And like you say, very often a lot of those fears are purely coming from the place of, I've been struggling for years, even decades. Many of our clients come to us having struggled with this since childhood. For some people, it's more recent. For some people, it's longer. It's ultimately irrelevant. But because somebody has been struggling for years and years and years, they therefore take that to mean that they're just stuck that way. And then also the other one being, I've tried, quote, everything. And granted, there are some people who reach out who have tried all manner of different approaches and therapies and professional approaches and so forth, and they're still stuck and they're still struggling. And people can, and this is not, this is not playing the blame game. It's completely understandable that somebody would start to lose hope and lose faith if they've been through that kind of experience. That's why we're covering this topic today, is to help people to address that and to realize that your past doesn't equal your future, and that you absolutely can fully and permanently overcome these issues. And just because you haven't done so yet, says nothing about you or your future.
And that's the thing. People want to move forwards, but they've got their head in a rear view mirror. And when they're presented with a solution that actually works, and we know it works because we've done it time and time and time again, there's a lot of fear around, well, God, if I actually commit to that solution and I fail at that one, what does that mean about me? And I think a lot of people are terrified, like that's a real exposure to them. If they feel very exposed, because whereas before you can kind of dabble in this and dabble in that and just kind of like hold a little bit back, because if you fail, well, you can always fall back on the saying, well, I didn't give it my all anyway. Whereas if you go all in to fix it, and you have this fear of, well, what if that doesn't work? Well, then what does that really mean about you? But the truth is that you have to be able to open yourself up like that to really go in if you really want to fix like you said, any problem, whether it's binge and emotional eating, stress and overwhelm, issues around low self-worth, whatever it is, you have to be able to open yourself up and go, okay, I'm all in.
Yeah, exactly. So Let's talk about beliefs in a bit more detail, because when it comes to any limiting belief that somebody has, like, I'm just meant to be overweight. What if I'm stuck this way? What if I'm not good enough? What if it's just not possible for me? Then any belief is going to be strengthened and supported by what we call references. So these are the bits of, quote, proof or evidence. Truthfully, that's not what they really are, but that's what people interpret them as being. Bits of proof and bits of evidence that support and strengthen the belief. So there's 3 types of references. The first reference is, actually, before I go into the different types of references, so just so that people have an understanding of what we're seeking to achieve here, is that in order to change a belief, then we have to change these references. Now, one of the base pieces of understanding is that beliefs are not facts. And that's a really, really important place to start, is if you have this fear about what if I'm stuck this way? What if I'm just meant to remain overweight? What if I can never fully and permanently overcome this issue? Is that a verifiable fact, an actual fact that can be documented? Or is it just a belief? And it's really important that people actually, if they're being completely honest with themselves and they realize, actually, yeah, it's just a belief. It's a fear. It's not a fact. So the whole point about beliefs is that people argue about if their beliefs are true or not, or even right, if their beliefs are right or wrong, and it's utterly irrelevant. The question is it useful? That's the question we need to be asking ourselves. So anyway, the process of changing a belief is the process of, there's a few pieces to it, but these references is one of the really key pieces of the puzzle. So there's 3 types of references that the more references we have, the stronger the belief gets. So the first type of reference is your own personal experience. So people will take their own personal experiences that they've had in this area and bolster the belief with that. So first of all, they will take all of the diets that they've tried. And one of the things I often say to people is, well, if you try and fail to lose weight using a low-calorie juice diet, and then you rebound, does that mean that you can't lose weight, your body is broken, and that you're doomed to failure? Or does it mean that low-calorie juice diets are bullshit?
If anybody is in doubt of the answer, let me tell you, like, low-calorie juice diets are bullshit, and they're the ones that are stupid, not you. Because I think, and it's understandable to think that, if you've got a history of dieting and you get to the belief of, well, maybe I am doomed to fail at this. Like, I've failed at all of these diets. Like, it's not your fault. And it's understandable that you may get to think, well, actually, like, I am losing hope here because of your past experiences. But what we're here to tell you is that that's actually not true.
Yeah, exactly. So if we return to the low-calorie juice diets, then most people would probably answer, oh, yeah, I get it. Like, low-calorie juice diets, obviously ridiculous, cause all, more harm than good, etc. But then what happens when you try 10, 15, 20 years of similar types of approach? And you go from one diet to another, and then you try intermittent fasting, and then you try keto, and then you try the paleo diet, and then you try whatever the latest thing is, and so on and so on and so on. Now, what people often do is that the human brain is very good at generalizing. It does that automatically. The human brain it looks for patterns so that it can predict or attempts to predict things. So what people end up doing is that, unfortunately, they generalize in a destructive way where their brain goes, failure, 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 failure. That therefore means that I'm a failure. Instead of realizing that every single one of those approaches, at worst, was harmful and destructive and causes more harm than good, like low-calorie juice diets, or at best, incomplete, only a tiny piece of the puzzle. Because even if at the end of that process, we've spoken about and we've touched on some of our methodologies with regards to baseline nutrition and making sure that people are following a sustainable way of getting the physical results that they want year round.
While doing life at the same time.
even if we gave somebody that on its own, if they haven't addressed all of the other issues, the binge eating habit and the way that urges and cravings manifest themselves, if they haven't addressed their mindset issues around perfectionism and overanalyzing and overthinking and all of these other things that we've covered in other sessions, then of course it's not going to work anyway. So looking back over all of those past experiences, does that mean that you're irreparably broken and can't lose weight? Or does it simply mean you haven't even gotten close to actually addressing the real source of the issue? And I think that's what a really important thing for people to understand, because they are labeling all of these things that they've tried over and over and over again as, well, nothing, quote, works for me. It's not that nothing works for you, it's just that you haven't actually gotten to the real source of the issue. So of course you haven't fixed it yet. That doesn't mean that you won't. It just means that you haven't actually addressed the real source of the issue. And unfortunately, so few people really know what's really going on behind the scenes, which is why we're doing this podcast and we're putting these kind of messages out there so that people can understand that issues around food and relationship with your body, etc., and weight loss and fat loss, for the most part, nothing to do with food and exercise. It's all about your mindset and, these habitual patterns that we've developed.
I think it's really easy to get caught in this trap of, looking at more diet and exercise. For me, from a personal perspective, having struggled with chronic and sometimes debilitating IBS since I was 11, I went and I saw so many doctors and practitioners and this and that. And like I said, I've been to see a shaman, I've been to see, a monk to teach you how to meditate, and which we've been in detail on. But the truth is that even though, actually, technically speaking, I should have probably lost hope. I should have. But me being me, I was like, no, there must be a solution. There must be. And it was only when, my mum actually phoned me when I was living in Sydney. She said, listen, I found this professor in gastroenterology. He's in Manchester. You're going to have to fly home and see him. And that's what I did, So when you talk about taking massive action, like I got my ass on a plane from Sydney. I flew to London, drove up to Manchester to see this guy, this professor in gastroenterology, who, by the way, I'd seen others before. This one in particular changed my life. And I know I'm going to get messages to say, who is it? So his name is Professor Peter Warwell, and he is based in Manchester, and he has got a book that is fantastic. So if you are struggling with IBS, I strongly suggest that you buy that book and start there. But he changed my life. And it was a completely different approach to anything that I had tried before. And you know what? It would have been so easy for me to say to my mum, you know what? I just can't be bothered. Like, I'm just going to try and keep plodding away and just keep managing here and, keep doing my blood tests and keep looking at this alternative and, doing this, taking these probiotics. And the truth is that nothing was really working. I had to do something drastically different. And the things that I did under Professor Warwell's care were absolutely drastically different to anything that I had tried in the past. And believe me, after spending hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to fix the problem, he was the one who gave me this, some solutions that actually worked. And I thought I knew almost everything there was to know about IBS. Honestly, I was pretty skilled in that area. He changed my mind on a lot of that. So you get to the end and you think that you've tried everything. I'm here to tell you, sure as hell, you have not tried everything. That's not true.
I think I might also take a slight deviation and follow on from that as well. I was intending to cover this later on, but this is just so related to what you just said. And in all honesty, looking at changing beliefs, this is probably the number one most important piece of changing beliefs. Just to clarify, what we were doing originally is looking at how do we destroy those old references and replace them with new ones so that we can create a new belief. But it's really interesting to notice that with most people's limiting beliefs, if they are self-aware enough and totally and completely honest with themselves, it's not so much that they don't believe it's possible. It's more that they associate more pain to the process of transformation than they do to not changing.
100%.
So what does that mean? We need a greater degree of commitment, because it's so funny, it's so interesting how many people you encounter who have all of these doubts and or fears or limiting beliefs, and it's just the way that I am, and I've always been this way, and my parents have always been this way too, and blah blah blah. But then at some point there's some kind of significant emotional event. Either something happens in real life or through the process of perhaps coaching or self-awareness. There's some kind of significant emotional event that gets them to a point where they go, this is costing me so much in every area of my life. It's costing me my relationships, my relationship with myself, my happiness, my sense of integrity. I can't show up the way I want to at work, my finances, blah, blah, blah. I cannot and will not go one more day tolerating this. I am fundamentally tolerating a life of mediocrity and bumbling along and making excuses, and I refuse to be that way ever. That's just not who I am committed to being. Like, when you associate more pain to continuing with the same struggles, then it's so funny when people reach that point of emotional threshold and all of those doubts and fears and, what if I'm meant to be this way? All of that becomes completely irrelevant, gets completely wiped out, and they go, I don't care. I don't have a choice. I'm going to make this happen. Yeah. Watch me. I will keep going and keep going and keep going. It doesn't matter how long this takes, who I have to see. Where I will travel halfway around the world like you did. I will do whatever is necessary to fix this problem once and for all. That's a proper decision, as opposed to what most people do, which is just a preference. It's like, well, I'd quite like to change this area, provided that it's not too hard, it's not too inconvenient, and I can shoehorn it into my already existing busy schedule.
And people have said to me, it's easy for you to make a decision like that because for whatever reason. I'm like, it wasn't an easy decision at all. And there have certainly been times where I have doubted whether I can actually get on top and on top of this and really manage what is, quite frankly, sometimes a really debilitating condition. Like, people don't understand actually how debilitating IBS can be. Of course, there have been times, especially when I've had flare-ups for months and months and months, there are times where you think, shit, like, there are brief moments where you think, shit, like, is this how it's going to be? And like, for me, I automatically snap out of it and go, hell no. Like, I cannot even bear to imagine the rest of my life being lived in this manner. So therefore, even if it takes me however long, if I didn't get to see Professor Wardwell until 2013. So I spent from age 11 to age, how old was I, 2013, 30, struggling with this stuff. And every year, every moment, I was like, when I felt that, shit, is this what it could be like? Immediately there was an overarching feeling and a belief of, hell no, I will still keep going, and I will still keep going, keep fighting, keep searching. And that's the mentality, and actually the attitude, and the can-do attitude, like something that we talk about in Chase Life, is this can-do attitude of whatever is thrown at you, like, you can do it. Like, what other alternative are you going to do? Just sit on your ass and just bumble your way along life? I don't think so. Like, that is not part of being a high-value woman. And this is something that I have talked about at length before on social media, this idea of constantly bettering yourself. That is what a high-value woman is bettering yourself all of the time. And that does not include sitting on your ass, bumbling your way along life, and just hoping that shit is going to be provided for you. Because that's not how life works.
Totally. That's a key characteristic in every single one of our clients, is that they have made the commitment to be that way. Even if they haven't acted from that place in recent times, or maybe even ever, they've, again, made that categorical decision that, I am fully committed to living from that identity from now on. Maybe we'll talk about identity another time, but identity is something that is constantly evolving and constantly in flux, and it's something that you choose. It's not written in the stars. You get to decide the version of you that you grow into. So anyway, let's go back to our references so we can kind of close the loop on that. So we've covered past experiences. Like every single one of the things that you labeled as this is evidence that I can't do it or that I'm stuck this way. That's not what they mean at all. Just because you haven't done it yet doesn't say anything about you or your capabilities or your future. It says everything about the methods that you've been trying so far. Number 2 is external references. So any external reference, it could be something that you read in a book, it could be a movie, and quite frequently it's other people's experiences and stories that you hear about other people. So one of the interesting things about beliefs, any belief that you have about anything, whether it's politics, people, whatever, any belief that you have, anytime that you have a strongly held belief, you will automatically filter in all of the evidence that supports that belief and all of the evidence that contradicts that belief. You will apply the quote fudge factor. It will get deleted. So either you won't even notice it at all. And that's something that happens a lot unconsciously without even realizing it. We just automatically delete it. Or if we do notice it, we will make it quote not count in some way. Right. So for example, if you see evidence of other people who are also struggling to lose weight or struggling with binge eating, and that's why it's so dangerous. I think we've spoken about this before, where when we were talking about coronavirus and somebody commenting in a forum saying anybody else gaining weight by the second, ha ha ha, yeah, me too, LOL. And there's all this validation of other people struggling with the same things. All that's doing is providing you with more and more references that this is normal and everybody does it and that's just the way that it is. And so it can only just serve to strengthen the belief that there's nothing that I can do about this, for example. And then when you see somebody else who had been struggling with all of the things that you struggled for the years and years and years, also had quote unquote tried everything, you'll find something, like if you allow yourself to filter in this way, you'll find something to make yourself different. Yes, but their case is different because of this. Oh no, I'm different because of this. You'll find some way of fudging it so that you can hold on to the belief. And again, most people aren't even aware that they're doing this. It tends to happen unconsciously, but hopefully just me referencing it can help you realize and spot when you do it so that we can take what was unconscious conscious and help you to realize, that's just not a very useful behavior. It's time to do something different. But that's the second type of reference, are external references. And again, like I say, you'll automatically find all of the references that support your belief. All of the references that completely destroy and contradict your belief get deleted from your awareness because of what you're looking for and the meanings you're attaching to it. Then the final type of reference is your own imagination. This is probably the most important one.
Probably the most dangerous.
Exactly. Probably the most dangerous, the most dangerous and the most powerful when you know how to use it. So is it possible to completely make something up and utterly convince yourself that it's true? I'm sure every single person at some point has had the experience of imagining they sent an email and then chasing somebody up and saying, haven't you replied to me yet? And realizing that you didn't actually write it. You thought about what you were going to send, or maybe you did write it, but you never actually clicked send. And then you look in your drafts folder and there it still is. Or you look in your sent folder and it's just not there.
Spoken from experience.
Right. Everybody's done this. Everybody's just made shit up and convinced themselves that it's true. And this becomes particularly prevalent when it comes to how you see your future, which hasn't even happened yet. Like you said at the start, most people are driving into the future with their head in a rearview mirror. The brain favors the path of least resistance. So when you think about a certain topic, it's going to create images and thoughts and ideas that are the most easily accessible, the freshest ideas. And I'm pretty sure we've referenced this in the previous podcast, but it's totally relevant to what we're talking about here. So most people end up taking memories from their past, replaying them, strengthening them, reinforcing them, and then projecting them into the future. And then they wonder why history keeps repeating itself. But what they're doing is that they are literally, as you imagine something, if you imagine your future being doomed, if you look into the future and imagine yourself continuing to struggle in the same way, then you're literally creating memories. You're convincing your brain that that's already happened or that that's what's going to happen. And so that again serves as another one of these pillars that supports and strengthens the belief, is your own imagination. And the crazy thing is that that's often the greatest factor here. Actually, you've spent, you may have had, if we even want to use this language, but 10 quote failures in the past, but you've imagined failing 10,000 times. And so now you've got 10,010 references instead of just 10.
And I don't want to go off on a massive tangent here, but beliefs and thinking that way and creating using your imagination in that way creates such a huge amount of stress and anxiety. And, is this one of the things that can contribute towards, chronic anxiety, depression, and things like that?
Yeah, for sure. I don't think we'll spend too much time diving into some of that stuff today, but it's relevant to everything that we do, everything we do in life, whether it's mental health and anxiety and depression, or business, relationships, finances, whatever it is that somebody's seeking to achieve. Beliefs is a key fundamental part of it. And one of the things we often say to people is you're either more committed to the dream or the fear. And it is absolutely something that you do. It's not something that happens to you. You don't have these fears. You don't have these dreams. There's something that you do. You can choose to fully and completely commit to the vision of the life that you want to have and create for yourself. And that's the thing, is that it doesn't happen by itself.
I think that's quite an empowering thing to hear, is that this is something that you do. You might not be doing it from a conscious level, but now you are, because we told you. And so when you know that this is something that you do, that's amazing, because you can change it.
Yeah.
That's such an empowering thing to hear and to know about.
Exactly. So we need to start strengthening and reinforcing the references that actually create the belief that you want. And I don't want that to come across as something that there's so much work to be done, or it's going to take a long time to do that. You can literally just decide what you're going to believe from here on in. And the most powerful way of doing that is what we touched on a moment ago. That is probably the number one most important piece when it comes to all beliefs, is having a strong enough why, a strong enough decision that I refuse to accept this as the life that I'm going to live from here on in. I cannot and will not go one more day without properly and fully committing to this and going all in.
And actually deciding what that outcome is, because it's all very well going all in, but unless you know what the outcome is, this is one of the reasons why people don't go all in and dive into the deep end, is because it's like, well, what's the point?
Yeah.
Because you don't know what you're moving towards anyway. So, and this is another thing, is that allowing yourself to create your future, because that's essentially what you're doing. Like, you can do whatever the hell you want to do, but you need to write it, you need to demand it, and you need to work towards that. Don't expect it to just happen for you. Just decide it and then happen. That's not how it works. You need to decide what it is with crystal clear clarity, and then move towards that. And you know what? As a human, you're going to have to grow at the same time. So who are you going to be to move towards that goal? So that, you have a particular goal, and who is the highest level version of yourself? Like, what is the identity that you're going to live up to in order to achieve that?
Sometimes people say things like, I can't imagine my life without this problem, or I can't imagine what my future would be like, or I can't imagine who I would be without this problem. And if that's going on, there's nothing sinister happening. You just haven't practiced it. Of course you haven't imagined what life would be like without this problem, because again, the brain favors the path of least resistance. So
it's kind of comfortable. It's like when you have a significant problem, it makes you feel kind of significant sometimes. It's also gives you certainty. That's all you know. It makes you feel comfortable. So the brain,
and then we could dive into identity stuff, right? Because sometimes people are they're making this problem a part of their identity. Right? It's like so every once in a while I might see somebody comment or like one of our things on social media, and the name of their profile is Anxiety Jane, or like they've literally made it a part of their identity. It's how. So if you have struggled with being overweight or with binge eating or something like that, then if you see yourself as an overweight person, and what I mean by that is there's a difference between seeing yourself as overweight in a very scientific, objective, factual way, which is, well, yeah, of course I'm overweight because I used to binge eat, versus that defining you and who you are as a person. Because the key thing to recognize is that your body is a delayed representation of who you are. It's actually a representation of who you used to be. It's a representation of who you used to be acting like. It's not actually a representation of who you are today. You could decide that you're a completely different person right now. And then you think that way, you act that way. All of your decisions are done from that place, from that sense of identity. It's just that you need time for your physiology to catch up and become a representation of your identity. So yeah, we could dive into all of that stuff as well. But the bottom line is that you don't get to create the future that you want without defining it and designing it in detail and then calling it in. So just because you may have felt like you can't imagine what life would be like without this problem, well, that's just because you've never practiced it. You have to create those images the first time. At first, it takes some effort. There's a great Henry Ford quote, which was, thinking is the hardest work there is, which is the probable reason why so few people engage in it.
And it's so true.
It's so true. I think that's how it goes. Hopefully I didn't butcher that. And I think it's Henry Ford. People, you can correct me if it's somebody else. But it's such a great quote. And, when it comes to choosing the future that you want for yourself, then you've got to put in the effort to actually imagine what that would be like. But honestly, it doesn't take long. It takes 5 minutes just by actually fully committing to, you know what, right, what does my life look like without this problem? I have so much emotional freedom. Now I'm no longer second guessing and over-analyzing my thoughts around food and around my body and what I look like. Now I have so much freedom and space in my thoughts to be present with my kids, to focus on my work. I don't have decision fatigue by the end of the day. So now I've got so much more energy left over by the end of the day to put into my side hustle or into my hobbies or into my family. I have so much certainty within myself. I'm taking massive action. Now I'm no longer second guessing or worrying about what might go wrong. Now I'm fully committing to growing my business in the way that I wanted to, or getting that promotion, or chasing that pay rise, or I'm actually getting out there and dating for the first time ever, and I'm dating people that are actually high value people instead of settling, etc., etc., etc. What does your life look like on the other side of this? Like, spend some time thinking about that, and guess what? As you do that, now your brain has a target to aim for.
And this goes beyond just what car you want to drive and what suburb you want to live in. Like, when you start goal, well, I'm speaking from personal experience here. When I started goal setting when I was like 14, 15, 16, and I wanted to drive this car and live in this house in this suburb in this country, etc. It goes so much more beyond that. And, if you are going to do this, one of the things to focus on is how are you going to feel when you get there? Because the feeling is so important, and that's it's not just about what assets you're going to have in your life. It's how you're going to feel when you get there. And we touched on that, I think, in previous episodes. But what is it going to feel like? And that is such a critical piece of the puzzle. Yeah,
honestly, it's the most important piece. What is the experience of life that you're going to have? As in, how does an experience change as a result of the version of you that you've changed into? Right, how does the experience of being with your family change? Or how does the experience of doing the job that you currently do completely change as a result of this internal transformation?
Awesome. So, is that a good place to wrap up?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So, guys, I have forgotten to mention on previous episodes, David's got an amazing book. And you guys should buy it. So basically, David's book is called Think Straight, Lose Weight. Obviously, it's written about the weight loss industry, but it's not just about that. This is a book for you if you really want to make some changes in your life, and beliefs are actually covered in that book, and so much more as well. So just go onto Amazon, search David Godfrey. Think Straight, Lose Weight is the title of the book. So guys, if you have a question for the podcast, as always, please send us an email, podcast@chaselifeconsulting.com. We are going to do another Q&A podcast over the next couple of episodes, so make sure you get your questions into us. And of course, as always, if you're looking to take action right now and to permanently overcome struggles such as binge and emotional eating, low self-worth, confidence, or stress and overwhelm, then you can book into our diary, and you just need to go visit chaselifeintensive.com/call. So that is a wrap on today's podcast. Please rate and review us and subscribe. And remember, chase life and always play beyond the rules.